We are getting back. Luckily, we have resumed our connection with Iryna Gerashchenko, who is a member of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. We will be talking about the work of Verkhovna Rada before the EU summit. Good afternoon, Iryna. I apologize for technical issues. No problem. First of all, Istanbul Convention was ratified by Ukrainian parliament. Why some people are afraid of it and why we should not be afraid of it? Well, first of all, Ukraine took commitments 10 years ago to cancel the capital punishment, to ratify Istanbul Convention, and to create public broadcasting. If Ukraine is a responsible country, we have to keep our commitments. Secondly, there are a lot of myths we need to debunk, which accompany this convention. Part of our society don't want to admit that one word has been included into Ukrainian legislation and Ukrainian vocabulary. This is Istanbul Convention, and this convention was the subject of a very aggressive campaign, as if it has something to do with the issue of same-gender marriages, etc. No, it's only about preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence. And I believe now was the ripe time to ratify this convention in Ukrainian parliament. I am the person who has been supporting voting for this convention for more than 10 years, and today's parliament is not ideological, and sometimes they are ready to vote for anything, or maybe they vote for certain names of those who have submitted acts for voting. But this convention was submitted for voting by President Zelensky, and in order for Ukraine to gain EU membership status, candidacy status, so we had to ratify the Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. Why it's important today? Because the conflicts always increase the number of people suffering from PTSD, which has direct impact on domestic violence. And we as society should not be tolerant to domestic violence. Our political party, we voted for ratification of this convention. We had ideological reasons to do that. We read the convention, and I should assure you that there is not a single phrase about same-gender marriages. And it's important to share the truth about this convention, which is about human rights and zero tolerance towards aggression against women and domestic violence. What other things do Ukrainian parliamentary members do in order to approximate us to EU? Some people say that the whole thing started from scratch. It's not true. Euro integration is a long-lasting process. You can see Ivana Libushensadze, who is behind my back. She was the first woman vice prime minister on EuroAtlantic Integration process. I was the leader of EuroAtlantic European integration. It's a very long-lasting process, and the fact that Ukraine is going to gain its candidacy status, EU candidacy status. So this is only possible thanks to ratification of EU association agreement and non-visa waiver program. All this was based on the reforms that were made in Ukrainian society. We had to implement reforms in 4 different sectors. One of them was human rights. I remember that we had difficulty voting in our parliament for one specific act that was non-discrimination related to sexual orientation. We know that voting for this act did not change anything in Ukrainian society. On the contrary, Ukrainian society has to become more tolerant because this is European society that respects human rights. We also implemented anti-corruption reform. We created anti-corruption organs. We also introduced biometric passports, and we had to implement the reform regarding border security, human rights. And now this is a logical continuation, logical step following previous reforms. When we are talking about EuroAtlantic integration, European Parliament is doing a lot during the martial law. Yesterday, we voted for 3 important acts, which are part of our striving to become part of the civilized world. One of the laws was waste management. We have to pay more attention to environmental issues, especially in the context of war, because it's not only PTSD for people, but also it worsens economic and environmental situation. Yesterday, we also adopted anti-corruption strategy. Atlantic integration has to become our religion, and this is one of our key objectives for Ukrainian parliament, to enact the laws so that we can approximate our legislation to EU norms and standards. From EU candidacy to full membership and anti-corruption issues related to that, we know that we can get EU candidacy status, but there will be a series of requirements. What are the requirements put forward, and what are the guarantees that we will meet those requirements? It's absolutely right that it's not only important to vote for the legislation, but we need to make sure that the structures that we create work. We have one requirement, so this is to appoint the independent anti-corruption prosecutors, specialized anti-corruption prosecutors office leader. Yesterday, there was an amendment made during the voting process, and we know that the leader of Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office had to be appointed more than a year ago. The situation is not normal. The government is enjoying the function of controlling this structure and having it as a dependent structure, but Ukraine demands that the leader of this bureau has to be independent. Yesterday, our political party voted for limiting the period of this person being in position, but unfortunately, we don't have the majority in the parliament. We also have to meet the conditions of ensuring freedom of world, anti-corruption reforms. According to me, Euro integration, these are values. We cannot only vote for Istanbul Convention because the time has come and because it's necessary. It became the pressing issue. It's important also to implement it. I'll just give you another short example, small example. Once we voted for the law of the public broadcasting. But public broadcasting, you know that in the single marathon, it turned into propaganda of our government, propaganda loudspeaker of our government. no freedom of word, no human rights respect, no respect towards the opposition, and these are fundamental values that we need to talk about. Therefore, we are looking forward to the 24th of June, and then we will have to do a lot of homework so that the journey between the candidacy status to full membership status is not 10 years long, but is shorter. But we need to value key European values and principles. Your personal expectations from the summit of the 24th of June, I am optimistic. If we are only talking about the Ukrainian government, I don't know what would be the decision of Brussels, but they are talking about Ukraine and Ukrainian society. Ukraine is now defending the principles of Europe and the principles of the whole world, democratic principles. That's why I believe that we will be supported. I remember that our opponents, and not only our opponents, but other segments of our society, how they worked when we were in the majority. They said, like, do not grant visa-free program because someone might be offended. We work differently. There were very high risks not to get candidacy status because our partners, they know all the weaknesses of our government, but there was no international meeting recently where the victory of Ukrainian people would not be mentioned. That's why it will be the victory of Ukrainian society if and when we get this status. We have strategic goals and objectives, and we cannot fall behind and fall back on our principles. We have certain commitments. We have to do our homework. We have to keep moving, and we have to keep implementing reforms on decentralization, human rights, anti-corruption, freedom of word, national minorities, etc. So all these things that we have to work on. I'm absolutely positive that the decision will be positive. I have no doubts about that. And our team, who met with Ursula von der Leyen and Roberta Mazzola early this month, so all these meetings started with the phrase, why did they not let Poroshenko leave the country for important European meetings? We said, okay, this we are going to talk about later back home, but let's talk about Euro integration. Let's talk about our position. So today we all have to show strong position, our president, the government, the parliament, diplomats, etc. The road, the journey from candidacy status to full membership status will depend on us. We will have to do a lot of work. We will have to amend our legislation, approximate our legislation to EU norms. But if our government keeps enjoying closing certain oppositional channels and they will be pressurizing opposition, so this is going to be endless road, endless journeys. So, and if we build authoritarian regime and authoritarian government, then this journey is going to be very, very long. If we get united around religious principles, which is EuroAtlantic integration, I hope that 5, 7, up to 10 years, yeah, I vote for 5 years. We will get full membership. So let's say goodbye to Iryna Gerashchenko, who is very optimistic about Ukraine prospects regarding EU membership. So our guest was Iryna Gerashchenko, member of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. At 2 p.m. We will host Serhiy Bratchuk, spokesperson for the head